Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter, at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.
Let's go on to Vanderbilt. This is a program you and I are super excited about, Rob. Not necessarily because we think they're going to be competing for Atlanta, but just because they're doing some different things. Derek Mason is out. I love the Derek Mason hire, by the way, when they hired him, Stanford defensive coordinator. Fiery dude. Almost fought Dan Mullen on the field a couple years ago. Like, underrated personality in the SEC. I like Derek Mason. I'm going to miss him. But he's actually at Auburn right now as a DC, so he didn't leave the SEC. But Clark Lee comes in from Notre Dame, former Vandy player. He played fullback there, 38 years old. Notre Dame defensive coordinator the last 3 seasons. Obviously, the Irish ended up making a run to the playoffs this year, had a pretty solid defense, top 15 scoring defense each of the last 3 years. We talked about the Barton Simmons GM type role. Hey, you got a young guy, up-and-coming coach. This is exactly who I want to see at Vanderbilt. Defensive-oriented, though. Hopefully he took some notes from Notre Dame, so he knows how to recruit at a high-level academic school. Look, I mean, the guy played at Vanderbilt. Barton Simmons was living in Nashville, knows the backyard. Maybe he gets – this is a school we talked about Texas State going down their list. If you're Vanderbilt and you can nail some 3-star recruits – get a couple of 2-star guys that with some upsides, maybe some like guys with some size that could grow into NFL bodies 4 or 5 years from now. Like really that you invested in the weight room and everything and pick up a couple good transfers every year. And we can see Vandy, we saw it under Franklin. It's possible to be a bowl team and be competitive. Mason did it a couple times. If you're Vanderbilt, the goal is 6-6 in a bowl game every year. I think Clark Lee could get it done. And I give this hire a big thumbs up. I'm a big fan of this hire.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm all for the new blood, the new young blood getting a shot at it and growing with the program. I think right now we live in this microwave society where we bring in a coach and we want results right then and there. But, certain stops, it takes time. And, everyone's not Clemson. Everyone's not Alabama, Ohio State. So it's going to take a little bit longer. But just like you said, you have to be competitive and you have to compete. So 5 to 6 wins year in, year out for Vanderbilt, that I think that's good. And if you're competing, I just don't see Vanderbilt ever competing for, the SEC championship. No. But at the end of the day, if you're, just like I said, in that South Carolina boat, if you're knocking off, Vanderbilt knocked off Florida one year. So we saw that upset. If Vanderbilt can kind of, have those upsets every other year and kind of be competitive week in and week out, I think that's a win for this program and for this fan base.
Yeah, I mean, is it unrealistic for Vandy to get to 3 wins in the SEC each year? I don't think so. I think you can get to that point. And if you could schedule favorably in the non-conference, schedule 3 or 4 wins in the non-conference, get those fight like hell for those 2 to 3 wins in the SEC, you got a bowl team every year. And if you could be bowling at Vandy, you're doing something good. So let them get tired of you going 6-6 at Vandy. But I'll tell you what, you go 6-6 a few times at Vandy, you might be out of there somewhere else. They might hire you somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, hey, I think I'm very interested to see what that staff does up there. The South Alabama Jaguars, they end up letting go of Steve Campbell, who had come over from Central Arkansas, a great FCS program with the purple field. They couldn't quite duplicate this success, though. Had a couple of tight games this season. They were a fun team early on when not many teams were playing. Those first couple of weeks of September, I watched a couple of South Alabama games. They played some tight ones there. But the Jaguars, they end up going to Indiana defensive coordinator Kane Womack, who's only 33 years old. And he was South Alabama's defensive coordinator in 2016 and 17. He's now the youngest head coach in the FBS. Womack to South Alabama. It's a young program. Get a young guy in there. You were just down there at the stadium in Mobile, recruiting rich area, but a lot of good programs around. So it's tough to say. So I like the Womack hire, but overall, I'm going to give it a shrug because I'm not sure. The South Alabama program hasn't shown me anything yet. So I'm not going to get too excited about it until I can see it. And that's not projecting ahead like we should be doing. On paper, I get the hire, but the guy was there a few years ago as defensive coordinator and you weren't that great. I don't know what's different.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm gonna give this one a shrug as well. I'm all for, just like I mentioned before, I'm all for, the new blood coming in there and getting a crack at it. 33 years old. He has time to grow with the program. He's familiar with the landscape. He was there as a defensive coordinator. Just like you mentioned earlier, I was down there for the Senior Bowl in Mobile. So the stadium, nice atmosphere. So he definitely has stuff to work with. So we're going to see moving forward, if he can kind of stick around and carve out a name for himself from a head coaching standpoint.
Louisiana-Monroe, they end up firing Matt Viator after 5 seasons. Warhawks end up going 0-10 in 2020. UL Monroe brings in Terry Bowden, which I'm not sure many people saw that coming. But Bowden, who somehow is only 64 years old. I thought he was much older than that. I thought he was well into his 70s, but he's 64. Last coach at Akron from 2012 to 2018. Obviously coached at Auburn in the 90s. He has a good record. He's 82 and 69-1 as FBS head coach. But he brings in Rich Rodriguez to coach his son at quarterback. Rich Rodriguez's son transfers in from Arizona. It's a lot of flashy names, but I'm gonna give this one a big thumbs down. I'm not super stoked about the Terry Bowden area at Monroe, Louisiana. Not fired up.
I'm actually gonna give this one a thumbs up, and the reason why is because I don't think he's gonna stick around, for a long duration of time. But just to kind of come back in and get the program, settled down and kind of get the program moving in the right direction. He's been there, done that. He's been around college football for pretty much his whole life. So I think he can kind of change the culture and get the program moving in the right direction. So I like this hire.
Let's go to Arkansas State, where Blake Anderson, like I said, 51-37, ends up going to Utah State. He resigned from Arkansas State to accept that Utah State job. He did leave Arkansas State to 6 bowl games and 2 conference championships, so we got to give him credit there. But it's like we said, why didn't he get that opportunity elsewhere? I'm not sure. I know he had the situation with his wife where his wife ended up dying of breast cancer, I believe. Maybe that kind of kept his family in one spot a little longer. I don't know, so it's not fair to speculate too much on that. Looking back on that, I was just remembering that from a couple of years ago when they played Georgia, they honored her. But Arkansas State, they end up hiring Alabama assistant coach Butch Jones, which I'm so glad I don't have to look at Butch Jones during Alabama games anymore. But Jones, obviously well known from his Tennessee stop, where as much as we want to crush the guy, 34-27 over 5 seasons. Very successful at Central Michigan and Cincinnati before he got to Tennessee at 84-54. Hey, Butch is not the most exciting name overall, but if you're Arkansas State, I think this is a hell of a hire coming off of Blake Anderson, the Blake Anderson years. I think he gets that. It's not because he breathes the same air as Saban. I just think he proved himself at Cincinnati, he proved himself at Central Michigan, and Tennessee's a mess. I'm not going to entirely blame Butch Jones on Tennessee. So I think he's culpable, but I would give him partial blame for his Tennessee years. So Arkansas is familiar with the territory down there for recruiting. I think this is a strong candidate. It'd be interesting to say who's going to be at their school longer, Butch Jones at Arkansas State or Gus at UCF. Because I think Butch is one and done at Arkansas State, and he's taking the first P5 job that calls him.
And with that being said, that's why I say I'm going to go thumbs down on this hire. And we talked about Arkansas State being a, head coaching carousel, year in and year out for a coaches coming in and leaving. Blake Anderson was probably the longest tenured head coach there for the last decade or so. With that being said, Butch Jones it just seems like he gets a job every other 3 years, and he kind of, flames out and he gets fired or he resigns or whatever the case may be, and then he pops back up again. I would have definitely liked to see Arkansas State go with a younger head coach and kind of have a head coach coming up in the ranks and kind of grow with the program. So with that being said, thumbs down on Butch Jones, Arkansas State.
You're almost making me regret my thumbs up. You almost swayed me with that, but I got to stick with it. Can't take it back. Kevin Sumlin's gone from Arizona. This one shocked me. I thought he was going to be a good fit at Arizona running that offense, but man, he lost his juice. He lost his fastball, and maybe if he goes back, I mean, talk about a good candidate for the Saban school of coaches right there. He could easily become a name that I think could resurface at some point, because those Manziel teams, he ran some good offenses at Texas A&M and Oklahoma before he got there. Houston too, right?
Yeah,
hey, that's two Houston coaches that imploded on the next stop, by the way, with him and Herman, right? So anyway, someone doesn't work out at Arizona. As a matter of fact, it's extra worse because the guy that everyone laughed at when they hired, Herm Edwards, is building a nice little program out in Tempe. And Arizona laid a 70-7 smackdown on the Wildcats this year. Good stuff out of Herm Edwards there, but too much for them to take after 3 seasons with someone. Time for them to make a change. They did it. They end up hiring. I was very surprised with this hire, Jed Fish. And the more I read, because I remember him as a Jaguars fan, he came in as the OC during the Gus Bradley days, and he's been in a couple of low points on his stops. He doesn't have a resume that makes you super stoked on him. He was with New England this past year, offensive assistant with the Rams before that. But, man, if this guy has been all around college football, all around the NFL, has a great story of how he got started. I listened to it on the Ryan Russillo podcast a few weeks ago. Great interview with Russillo about his plans for Arizona. The first-time head coach. So even though he's at this point he's an older guy, he's definitely a guy that is ready for this opportunity. He's coached out in the West Coast at UCLA before. He knows every part of the country. Like, he's coached in every part of the country. Lots of experience on both the pro level and the college level. I think it's a fantastic hire for Arizona. I wasn't excited about it when I saw it initially, but now that I've looked into it and I've read up on the guy, I'm pretty pumped to see what they can do, because I got to be honest, they're not going to be any worse than they were with Sumlin. So I think this program, even if they can't get over the hump, it's going to trend up with Fish. Good hire out at Tucson.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Thumbs up. Good hire. First-time head coach, but, what comes with a lot of experience. And I tell you what, you're not trying to compete for national championships out there in Arizona. You're trying to be competitive, and that's what Jed Fish is going to come in and do. He's going to come in, change the culture, and be competitive, and that's all that you ask. And, of course, you don't want to get beat down 70-7 from your, in-state rival as well. So I think he, comes in and creates a competitive balance for that state, and can actually, kind of go up and compete against the USCs and the Oregons of the world.
Where's Spencer Rattler from? What state? Oklahoma quarterback.
Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler.
Arizona.
Arizona is the Arizona guy.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name right now. The Iowa State QB. What's his name again?
Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy, Arizona.
Arizona guy.
Dude, that's what Fish was talking about in the interview. I don't know how we're letting these guys get out of Arizona. Like, Arizona's got plenty of players. Like, if we kind of keep the good players here in Arizona, that's all we need. And those schools, like, if you get a guy that can recruit like that goes out and is excited about the program. What I like about Jed Fish, I'm always cautious with guys who get fired coming in, which we both like the Gus to UCF thing, but I think that's different. I feel like he's getting new life at UCF a little bit, where he's been at Auburn under Saban's thumb for so long. Little different feel. Jed Fish coming in here to play Sumlin. Sumlin was like, just ran out of town hard at A&M, and they were just like, enough. Like, we thought you were the guy, you're not. And they ran him out of town. And you almost felt like it just never got off the ground because even he came in. And the reason I had so much confidence too in him, it wasn't blind faith. Remember a guy by the name of Khalil Tate that was supposed to be a Heisman candidate? I thought that was going to be a great fit for him out there. Didn't work. Doesn't seem like he's recruited all that well out there. If Fish comes in, has different energy and everything, and I think Arizona's an attractive place. I mean, hell, you get Gronk. Gronk's story for going there is that he went to a pool party. Like, Fish's coach, he got to start at Florida. He knows how to sell a good spot. So I think Fish is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to watching development. And, hey, I would love it. There's no reason in my mind Arizona and Arizona State shouldn't be top-level programs year in and year out. There's really not.
Yeah, I mean, just from a geographical location, I think I'm right there with you. I mean, you kind of have California not too far from you. And actually, we've been seeing a lot of talent come out of the Nevada area more recently. So right there. And then you got Texas not too far away. So I think if you're a head coach at Arizona State, I think you should be competitive year in and year out.
All right, two more, Rob. Lovie Smith in Illinois part ways on after 5 seasons in Champaign. I was disappointed in this because I thought Lovie was building. He got dealt a really bad hand coming in, and they were patient with him, and it feels like it paid off with a bowl bid last year. A couple upsets along the way. They ended up losing in the bowl game to Cal. But I think if you give Lovie, like, I think this 2020 season, it's just kind of like, I don't like that this was the year you decided on something with him. But they made the move. You know, I would like to see someone like Lance Leopold from Buffalo get this job. But they go out and they bring in Brett Bielema, which I think you can already tell my reaction to this. I'm a big thumbs down. This is the biggest thumbs down hire I have of the entire cycle. But if you're an administrator in Illinois and you're not a big football guy, and Brett Bielema comes in and says, guess what? I've won 3 Big Ten titles. I know how to win the Big Ten West. I coached at Wisconsin, which, by the way, is a very good football school. And we're going to build a big physical team that hits people and plays competitive football. You're probably like, oh yeah. I could see Bielema selling the hell out of himself in a room. But if you have a freaking brain, you know he won those Big Ten titles when Ohio State was going through NCAA issues, right? And then he leaves Wisconsin, which is a perfect freaking job for him, goes to Arkansas because they pay more money, and then was a total disaster down there in Arkansas and just never adjusted. Talk about a guy like similar to Will Muschamp at 2 stops. We know who Brett Bielema is. Is Brett Bielema going to do anything different at Illinois than he did at Wisconsin or Arkansas? He's going to have to if he's going to win. But I'm not too skeptical of this hire. I'm sorry, I'm not too optimistic about this hire. I'm very skeptical of it.
Yeah, and this is the part where we differ at, Nick. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up. And the reason why is we know we talked about Michigan and
I'm stunned right now.
We talked about Michigan and the state of the program in regards to its identity and not having an identity. You're right. We know what Brett Bielema is going to do. We know he's going to play, smash mouth football. He's going to run again. So we know that. But at the end of the day, if you can do that at a high level in the Big Ten, I think you can be competitive. And we see Wisconsin do that. And I mean, the only thing that Wisconsin has been missing is, being able to open it up and being able to throw the ball downfield. Now, if Brett Bielema can do that, I think he's going to do tremendously well in the Big Ten. I don't think he was going to do well in the SEC because of the style of play that he plays with. It's going to work coming across certain teams, but it's not going to work coming across Alabama, because if Alabama knows you're one-dimensional coming into the game, then, you might as well just forfeit the game. But I think you can be one-dimensional in the Big Ten and still get away with it for majority of the season until you come up and you meet, the Ohio States, the Wisconsins of the world. Then you're going to have to open it up. So I think I like this hire, Brett Bielema to Illinois.
I just worry. Do you think he's evolved?
I don't think he's involved as a head coach. I think, he's going to continue to lean on the running game, but I think he doesn't have to completely evolve. I think he has to evolve when he comes across certain teams, which is going to be the Ohio States, the Michigans, and the Wisconsins of the world.
Right.
And if he does that, that means he's competing for the Big Ten championship.
Well, and you can't worry about that right now, in fairness. Like, I think right now your approach at Illinois is Illinois is one of those programs that might be the most underachieving program in America. I'm not sure why they're not a bowl team year in and year out. It's a resource-rich program. They have plenty of money at that program. It's not. I don't know the ins and outs of it. I'd like to learn more. Maybe we should do an episode on Illinois on that, but I would love to learn more about them. But we've seen them have good teams. I mean, we've seen great players come through there, especially, man, back in the 90s, Kevin Hardy, Simeon Rice, they had some real ball players come through there, and we just haven't seen that level of talent go through there in years. And I'm not sure Brett Bielema, like, we're going to rough them up, like, type of style is, like, the answer. Man, if I'm Illinois, I want a fun style of football. Give me a wide open football that we might lose to Ohio State, but we're going to lose 65-35. And we're going to put up 42. We're going to put up 42 on this team. And we're going to be a nightmare for Purdue. And, like, we're going to be a nightmare for Iowa and, like, these teams like that. But Iowa and Wisconsin already play that style of ball. Hell, Northwestern kind of plays that style in a way, right? Like, so what are you doing that's different? You can even argue Minnesota plays that style. Minnesota's at least a little more open.
Yeah, definitely a little bit more open.
But still physical, run, play defense. That's PJ Fleck, right?
Yeah, I think that's a style that you kind of have to play in that conference. And the reason why I say that is because of the geographic location. You have that cold weather that you can use to your advantage. So when you're playing that smash mouth physical style, like I tell you what, I used to love to get physical when I played the game of football. But I tell you, when the temperature dropped, trying to get physical in that temperature, it's a little bit different. So I think, playing that smash mouth football that Brett Bielema is going to play, it's going to wear on teams, and he can kind of grind out the game and win some games that maybe he's not supposed to win, but just because of the physical play and the style of play, he's going to win it. But you can say, hey, he might lose it too, because he's not going to open it up. But let's just give him some time. I know he didn't do good at Arkansas, but we did see what he can do in the running game. So he had a top tier rushing offense in the SEC. So that's saying a lot right there.
Hey man, sounds like that Illinois is gonna be a team we got to bet on. We got to make a preseason bet or something. We got to do that. All right, interesting discussion. Definitely got to do an Illinois episode. Auburn episode just confirmed. We have a writer from 24/7 Sports coming on in a couple weeks with us, Rob. Nathan King covers Auburn for 24/7 Sports. He's going to come on. We're going to do an interview Tuesday, March 2nd with him, all about Auburn, everything about Auburn that you'd want to know, and then some. Gus is out at Auburn. We talked about that to start this conversation with UCF. Brian Harsin comes in from Boise State. Well, Rob, early on, it sounded like the boosters were really running things, and some guy, I don't know who, but some guy's plan was, we're going to put Kevin Steele in. We're going to fire Gus Malzahn, pay him $21 million to leave, and then hire his defensive coordinator. What? How is that the plan? You're going to how rich are you, by the way, that you could just throw $21 million around like that?
Pretty rich. I tell you that, but that was a horrible plan. I'm glad it didn't work out like that.
I heard some other names along the way too, yeah. Right? A lot of goofy, like it was a long road before we got to Harsin, is the only point I wanted to make. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. It was definitely a long road, but the whole Kevin Steele thing,
Players.
that just. Yeah, that kind of blew my mind for a second. But I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and give this hire a thumbs down. And the reason why I say that is because, it's Auburn football. You kind of want to go out there and get that splashy hire. You kind of want to go out there and get that coach that can kind of compete against Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher. And then if you look over to the East to compete against Dan Mullen and all of those guys on the East. So with that being said, I do not like this hire at all. And if you're going to make this hire, you might as well just stick with Gus Malzahn. I mean, he actually went and showed you that he can kind of win in the SEC. He's been to the top. He's conquered it. Not as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator. But he pretty much had his thumb all over that team. So with that being said, I really didn't like this hire at all. You might as well just retain Gus Malzahn and just keep him and not, have the $21 million buyout and bring in another coach. So I didn't like this hire at all.
You only pay a guy $20 million to get the hell out if you know you're getting a guy that's better. And do you have a better coach today?
No.
Or not necessarily worse, by the way, but not like Urban Meyer would be like a clearly like better, like it'd have to be a name almost on that level because Gus has proven himself. And hey, look, Auburn, let's be real with Gus, up and down and all over the place. And if you're an Auburn fan, there's such thing as relationship fatigue. It's been 7 or 8 years with him, 8 seasons. It's been all over the map. You've been to a national title game. You've missed bowl games. Your quarterback play has been pretty much crap the last several years. He doesn't seem to recruit the quarterback position particularly well either, which is surprising because he runs such a good offense. But Gus really missed big on the Bo Nix recruiting. And like whatever it is, whether it's Bo or whether it's whether it's the system or whether it's Bo, he missed big on that because I think that ultimately cost him the job because I think there's just not a lot of hope with him right now. There's not a lot of hope with this team, and I think that you take away the hope from the fan base, and I think that's why Gus ends up getting canned for $21 million.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's more so. I don't think it's the scheme because we've seen Gus scheme win before. We've seen Gus scheme win a national championship. We've seen Gus scheme, kind of evolve. He's took in that scheme from high school and brought it to the collegiate level. And actually you can see that, scheme kind of trickle over in the NFL right now too. So I think the scheme is solidified. It's perfect. It's solid. But just like you said, I think that quarterback position is a miss in Bo Nix. And I tell you what, I think, they played the wrong player. If you ask me, I would have went with Joey Gatewood instead of Bo Nix.
I would say that too, but Gatewood couldn't get on the field at Kentucky either. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. So I thought Gatewood was going to be a great fit at Auburn too, but I don't know, man. I don't know. And so that's why I'm going to go like this. I think Harsin, it's much like the Heupel thing. It's not that Harsin's a worse coach or better. It's just, I think Heupel is going to be judged on what he does on the wins and losses, when in reality, he should be judged from elevating the program, which is what he's going to do. Heupel is going to elevate Tennessee. Harsin, is he going to elevate Auburn? I don't know. Nick Saban's down the street. Probably not. It's not a great situation to step into, but if I got offered a job where I knew I could potentially get fired with $21 million coming my way, I'd be like, okay, all right, Auburn, what do you want me to? Let's go.
Yeah.
You want me to beat Saban? Sure, let's go.
I can try.
I'll try.
I give my best shot, but don't count on it.
I'll guarantee you I'll do it, and if I don't, you can fire me.
Yeah,
give me $21 million.
And that's the thing. I really wish Auburn would have stuck with Gus. I know, his kind of career has kind of been up and down. But one thing that you've seen him win on, a national level. You've seen him win, a national championship. You've seen him get back to a national championship, his first year as a head coach. It's talent in that area. He can kind of recruit the players that he needs for the scheme. Look at all the recruits that's been coming out in the draft. You got Big Cat. You have, I'm blanking on some names, but you had a lot of names who made that, transition on the next level, who's playing really, really well. So I don't think it's a lack of talent. I think Auburn kind of can get those guys. year in and year out from a recruiting aspect. But that quarterback position is key. And I tell you what, it's more so key now than ever, especially when you have the transfer portal being used the way it's being used.
Let me give you the upside of Harsin. It's like you said, portal for quarterback, maybe in a year. Maybe get Bo Nix 1 year, work with him for a year, and then portal the quarterback next year. So if you bring in a quarterback and you clean up the offensive line struggled under Gus the last few years, you clean up that offensive line, the defense stays stout. If you win 8-9 games every year at Auburn, that's going to be an improvement on what Gus did. I think Harsin he might not be that big, sexy name you want, but I do think he can bring that level of steadiness. So if you want to be an optimist on the hire, do you have a guy that's going to bring more consistency into your program year to year? Perhaps. You might have nailed it if you're Auburn with that, if that was your criteria. But I think Auburn is first off, everyone shits on Auburn for being crazy, full of crazy people. That's what makes college football great. So I absolutely love the Auburn program for that reason. But that being said, they're a bunch of psychos and they think they're Alabama and they're not. And so if you have to live in that shadow every day, if you have to live in the shadow of it's like you can have a great job and a great degree, but your brother's the doctor who makes $5 million a year. You're never going to be that. Like everywhere else goes, that's a great program. You're doing a good job, but all you care about is your brother.
Yeah,
Life's going to be tough. Life's going to be tough.
And that's the thing. And we're going back to the hire, thumbs up, thumbs down, or the shrug. And that's why I'm giving it a thumbs down because, ultimately, yeah, you want a head coach to come in and be consistent. But at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to beat your rival. And your rival is Alabama. So I don't care how consistent you are. If you can't beat Alabama, then this is a bad hire because you want to hire a coach that's going to go in and go toe-to-toe with Nick Saban. And I just don't think this is it.
I don't know if that guy exists, though. That's the problem.
It's a few out there, but
even still, you see, Malzahn did it. Malzahn did it a few times. And then Ogeron, where's he this year? It's not, nobody can do it year to year like Nick. And that's what you see different programs rise up to challenge, but it's not really the same. I mean, Georgia's probably been the closest to it in terms of a steadiness, but
you got Clemson. Clemson's been pretty
nationally,
steady.
Clemson.
Nationally, Clemson, Ohio State. But within the SEC, Georgia and LSU, back and forth.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I think we both agree that Harsin's a good coach, and in almost any other situation, that's a good hire. But because Alabama, it complicates things. Can we at least agree on that with Harsin?
Definitely.
Alabama conquers it.
Alabama complicates a lot of things for a lot of coaches. So don't get me wrong. He's not the first coach that has been succumbed to the Alabama winning streak or under Nick Saban. So, but that's just something that you have to deal with. And that's just a hurdle that you have to get over as a head coach going up against Nick Saban. If you want to be one of the elite coaches in the nation, that's something you have to do. You have to beat Nick Saban when you have the chance and the opportunity. And right now, Dabo Swinney is probably one of the coaches that can say, hey, I can go toe to toe with Nick Saban and I'll take my chances.
Yeah. Not many of those guys out there though, but anyway, man, hey, great episode. That was fun. Looking ahead, little look ahead to 2021 with all the new coaches. We are going to have Jeff Sharon on next week to do a deep dive into UCF football. Little Gus Bus action down in Orlando around Disney World there. Looking forward to it, man. Any final thoughts here before we send it out to our sponsor, Coach Paint?
No, send it out for us, Di.
All right, man. We'll send you out these final words from our sponsor, Coach Paint. Thanks for listening to American Football Stories podcast.
American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly telestrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories. Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.